This is Wrestlepalooza.
Wrestlepalooza returned to conversation in 2025 as a bold revival of an ECW staple, moving from gritty underground cards to a WWE stage presence. Fans who remember those early shows recall brutal matches, chaotic energy, and a fierce devotion that made ECW gatherings cult touchstones. WWE's relaunch, set for September 20th, 2025 at Gainbridge Fieldhouse and fronted by marquee names such as John Cena, intends to honor that Raw heritage while delivering a modern television-scale spectacle. This video traces the lineage from mid-1990s ECW editions through the promotion's closure and WWE's later stewardship, explains why Wrestlepalooza lingers in wrestling memory, and previews how the company plans to blend nostalgia with mainstream ambition. Expect history, character-driven storytelling, and scenes that nod to the past while aiming for fresh, high-stakes moments. It will challenge fans to weigh memory against reinvention and to decide what that name means today. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Origins and ECW era, 1995 to 2000. Wrestlepalooza first emerged as one of ECW's hunger-driven showcases, where the promotion bundled its most chaotic and boundary-pushing encounters into single nights that felt like a dare to the mainstream. Unlike marquee efforts from larger companies, these cards leaned into rough edges and visceral atmosphere. The name grabbed attention because it promised spectacle without polish and a sense that anything could happen. Wikipedia documents the event series as an ECW production held sporadically across the second half of the 1990s, and it notes that most matches were taped for television. At the same time, one edition was presented on pay-per-view. ECW did not treat Wrestlepalooza as an annual tentpole in the manner of some other promotions. Instead, the event appeared in 1995, 1997, 1998, and 2000. The inconsistent schedule mattered because it kept expectations low and surprise high. Many of the bouts were captured for hardcore TV or similar ECW broadcasts, so Wrestlepalooza often served a dual purpose as both a live spectacle for attendees and a source of memorable television content for the wider fanbase. That practice gave the shows a scrappy immediacy that television viewers later associated with ECW's identity. The 1995 Wrestlepalooza in Philadelphia is remembered for matches that doubled as statement pieces for ECW's aesthetic. The Public Enemy and the Gangstas went to a stretcher match that leaned into the promotion's violent image. Meanwhile, the Sandman had a notable confrontation with Mikey Whipwreck in a bout that leaned heavily on cane spots and personal animus. These encounters were not merely about decisive finishes, but about cementing an emotional tenor that made ECW different from its larger rivals. Fans who lived through those nights describe a mixture of excitement and alarm that felt genuine rather than staged. By 1997, the event returned to the ECW arena in Philadelphia and delivered some of the ladder rungs that built careers and rivalries. The Eliminators defended the tag titles against the Dudley Boys in a match that underscored ECW's tag team depth. The card also featured a game pitting Sabu against Taz, two performers whose styles clashed in ways that defined an era. Most dramatically, the 1997 bill gave fans a conclusion to the long Tommy Dreamer and Raven angle when Dreamer finally overcame Raven in what carries the weight of a loser leaves town match. That finish functioned as a catharsis for the audience and as a pivot point for the performers' trajectories. Wrestlepalooza 1998 shifted the series into the PPV Arena. Held in Marietta, Georgia, the show was headlined by Shane Douglas defending the ECW World Heavyweight Championship against Al Snow. Presenting Wrestlepalooza as a full pay-per-view amplified its reach and gave ECW a chance to translate its underground energy into a broader revenue format. The move also captured the tension between ECW's raw identity and the business reality of trying to monetize that distinct voice. Fans and historians often point to this edition when discussing how ECW tried to balance artful chaos with sustainability. The 2000 edition in St. Charles, Missouri, served as the last time Wrestlepalooza appeared under the ECW banner. That card leaned into tag and street fight permutations, and the marquee match paired Tommy Dreamer, Dusty Rhodes, the Sandman, and New Jack against a faction known as the Network in a street fight environment. Within a few years, ECW itself would close and its assets would be absorbed by WWE, turning those raw nights into archival material for a later era to mine. The final Wrestlepalooza became part of a larger narrative about the rise and fall of a promotion that lived loud and brief. Across those years, Wrestlepalooza gathered a legacy that feels different from standard nostalgia. For many devotees, the show shows represent a time when professional wrestling could feel dangerous and unpredictable. That perception was fueled by match structures and creative choices that foregrounded physical risk and emotional storytelling. Contemporary retrospectives describe Wrestlepalooza as a symbol of ECW's willingness to test limits and to build community through shared intensity. As WWE revives the brand name decades later, some fans feel a mix of excitement and doubt, questioning whether that original spark can truly be recaptured under a much larger corporate banner. WWE acquisition and dormant years. When Extreme Championship Wrestling collapsed in the early 2000s, its recorded history did not disappear with it. In 2003, WWE bought the company assets, and with that purchase came the video library and the rights to event names. That acquisition moved ECW from a bankrupt independent into a vault that a far larger company could mine, curate, and repurpose for new audiences. WWE treated those tapes as a resource rather than a relic. The company packaged archival material into high-selling DVDs. It used the footage to build documentaries that explained ECW to viewers who had never stood in the fluorescent lights of the ECW arena. The success of those releases helped convince WWE that there was still appetite for the brand identity that had once felt dangerous and immediate. That commercial interest led WWE to stage reunion-style shows and to experiment with different ways to put ECW back in front of a mainstream crowd. That experimentation turned into a formal relaunch. WWE first tested the waters with ECW-themed pay-per-view events and reunion cards. Positive box office and strong sales pushed the company to reintroduce ECW as a third brand in 2006. For several years, WWE presented a weekly ECW program that mixed nostalgia with new storylines and tried to translate the old promotion into WWE's television language. The attempt yielded mixed reactions, and eventually the brand was folded back into the wider company lineup in 2010. The relaunch proved that an archival property can be revived in multiple ways while also showing the limits of nostalgia when it is filtered through a much larger corporate machine. Even with that temporary revival, WWE generally kept the original ECW event names on the shelf. Wrestlepalooza, a name attached to only a handful of ECW supercards in the 1990s, remained unused by WWE for more than 2 decades. The decision to preserve the name may have been practical as well as strategic. Some historic event names were repurposed quickly, while others were held back until the right commercial or programming moment arrived. Wrestlepalooza sat in that latter group, available for use but not immediately needed. During the dormant years, the tape library and the memory of ECW served multiple functions. The footage fed nostalgia projects and documentaries. It gave WWE an archive that could be monetized in home video and streaming packages. It also offered creative teams examples of characters and matches that could be referenced or reimagined for new storylines. For a generation of fans, the library became a way to remember an era that had felt marginal at the time but influential in retrospect. For WWE, the library became a set of assets to be managed carefully. When reports surfaced in 2025 that WWE would finally use the Wrestlepalooza name on a premium event, the reaction was complicated. Some observers welcomed the idea that a brand with cult cachet could be showcased under a larger, more visible roof. Others warned that a corporate revival risks diluting the gritty reputation that made names like Wrestlepalooza meaningful in the first place. Media coverage framed the move as both a business decision and a cultural moment, noting how the name could bring historical resonance to a modern card while also serving as a tool to attract attention during a crowded live event calendar. Looking back, the period between WWE's purchase of ECW assets and the 2025 reuse of Wrestlepalooza reads as a slow, deliberate conversion of independent history into corporate property. The arc runs from courtroom filings and dusty videotapes to best-selling documentaries and reunion shows, followed by a branded relaunch and then a long stretch of careful archival management. In the end, the choice to revive a specific event name after so many years reflects how legacy can be both preserved and reinvented. The coming usage of Wrestlepalooza in a WWE context will test whether a piece of underground memory can be translated into mainstream spectacle without losing the edge that made it worth remembering. WWE's 2025 revival, the new Wrestlepalooza. WWE's decision to bring back Wrestlepalooza in 2025 reads like a calculated gamble. and a nostalgia play rolled into one. The company announced on August 20th, 2025, that Wrestlepalooza would take place on September 20th, 2025 at Gainbridge Fieldhouse in Indianapolis, a venue already associated with major WWE spectacles this year. At face value, the move reclaims a name that once belonged to a smaller, rougher promotion. For many viewers, Wrestlepalooza evokes images of ECW arenas, crowd uproar, and chaotic match finishes. WWE repurposing the name signals an intent to mine that energy while presenting it on a far larger stage. The timing connects to a broader corporate shift in how WWE delivers content to fans. The company plans to debut this revived show as part of a new distribution relationship with ESPN that will put the event on ESPN streaming platforms in the United States. That change represents a major departure from the company's previous broadcast relationship, and it gives WWE an incentive to launch the new partnership with a splash. The most obvious strategic choice behind the date is competition. Wrestlepalooza will run on the same night as another major wrestling pay-per-view produced by a rival promotion. That head-to-head scheduling creates an immediate ratings contest between two large companies and invites comparison of cards, production, and storytelling. For WWE, the benefits are straightforward. A strong card could draw viewers away from the competing show, reinforce brand loyalty among casual fans, and demonstrate that WWE can still dominate major wrestling events. For critics, the move appears overtly combative, a deliberate attempt at crowd splitting that raises questions about whether the decision is driven by creative goals or by market positioning. Beyond scheduling, the relaunch is designed to be a spectacle and a star vehicle. The announced lineup centers on some of the industry's most recognizable figures, and the presence of marquee names gives WWE leverage when selling the event to networks and streaming services. Among the talents mentioned in coverage are a veteran who is on a widely publicized farewell run, two wrestlers who have anchored the company's world title scene this year, and multiple performers who can deliver both high-energy matches and emotionally charged moments. Those ingredients are the kind that television partners favor because they translate easily into mainstream headlines and social media buzz. The reported match plans suggest WWE wants to mix closure with championship stakes. One speculative headline bout pits a long-running physical rivalry against a veteran's farewell narrative. Another planned match would place a top champion against a challenger whose arc has been central to the promotion this year. Both types of matches function differently for an audience. A farewell-style match trades on sentiment and memory, while a title defense is meant to drive ongoing narratives into the next booking cycle. Combining both on the same card is a way to satisfy nostalgic viewers and to keep current storylines moving forward. This relaunch also tests the limits of brand resurrection. When a larger company adopts a beloved independent label, there is always a tension between preservation and reinvention. Some fans will appreciate seeing a storied event name reach millions of homes. Others will worry that the name loses meaning when it is divorced from the scrappy venues and its original roster. WWE will have to decide how much of the original flavor to preserve and how much to modernize. That balance affects production choices, match styling, and how aggressively the show leans into references to the original era. Finally, the business calculus matters. Launching Wrestlepalooza as the inaugural event under a new streaming arrangement gives WWE a promotional hook and an opportunity to deliver demonstrable viewership numbers to partners. If the company succeeds, it will have validated a fresh distribution path and shown that legacy branding can be monetized at scale. If it fails, the loss will be public and immediate because the contest with the rival promotion is so direct. For fans, the result will be equally visible and likely to shape perceptions about whether legacy names should be revived or respectfully retired. What ECW fans and new viewers should expect. Wrestlepalooza's 2025 revival reads as a wager on memory and momentum. WWE is using the name to bridge an underground past with a mainstream present. That choice asks two related questions of viewers who care about wrestling history. Will WWE preserve the rough edges that gave the original events their meaning and weight, or will the company rebrand those edges into a broader, more polished entertainment product designed for stadiums and streaming platforms? Both possibilities are plausible, and both will shape how long the relaunch resonates with longtime fans and how quickly new viewers accept it. For those who remember the ECW era, the word Wrestlepalooza carries texture. In the 1990s, the shows were compact nights that foregrounded physical risk, crowd intensity, and creative unpredictability. Fans today often recount those nights not just as matches, but as shared experiences in which the crowd felt like a participant. Translating that feeling into a Gainbridge Fieldhouse production means choices about pace, camera work, and creative tone. If WWE leans into short, brutal bursts and references to ECW lore, it may capture echoes of the past. If the company chooses large-scale production values and longer television-style storytelling, the product will likely feel familiar to newer fans who consume wrestling through large broadcast events. The broadcast decision matters as much as the production choices. Delivering Wrestlepalooza through ESPN streaming platforms positions the show within mainstream sports conversation and invites different expectations about presentation. Wrestling that sits inside sports networks often gets framed with statistics, promo packages, and commentary that treats bouts like athletic contests to be analyzed. That framing can help WWE reach casual sports viewers, and it gives the company leverage when negotiating commercial deals. At the same time, it pulls the show away from the sense of outlaw theatricality that defined ECW, and that some fans believe should remain outside conventional sports language. Timing the event against another major wrestling show increases the pressure, but also the potential payoff. Running head-to-head with a rival promotion's marquee card forces a direct comparison of rosters, storytelling, and production. For viewers, the evening becomes less about a single match card and more about which company captured the cultural moment. For WWE, the contest is an aggressive market position designed to force fan choices. Success would validate both the roster selection and the new distribution relationship. Failure would be visible and could be interpreted as a misread of fan appetite or of the broader wrestling calendar. What fans can expect inside the ring depends on how WWE decides to honor ECW's DNA. One path is a show with several short, violent spots that nod to the original format, while the commentary team explains their lineage to mainstream viewers. The other path is a standard premium live event card that prioritizes star power, long storytelling arcs, and carefully planned television moments. Both approaches can work, but they answer different audiences. One privileges memory and bravado, while the other privileges continuity with WWE's current narrative architecture. Beyond ring style, the card construction will reveal WWE's intent. Including veteran names on a farewell path alongside championship matches suggests a hybrid strategy. A farewell match trades on sentiment and legacy, while a title match pushes forward the company's present storylines. Combining these elements gives the event both an emotional hook and practical value for future programming. It also creates moments that mainstream media can latch onto, which is useful when debuting a new distribution partnership and when competing for attention against a rival event. Fans who grew up on ECW will be watching with cautious optimism. They want Easter eggs and stylistic nods that show respect for the original product. That might include familiar match types, surprise appearances by figures associated with the old promotion, or production decisions that mimic the raw intensity of small arena crowds. New viewers will likely measure the show differently. They will look for clean production, decisive story beats, and matches that feel important within the current WWE narrative. Success depends on creating a card that satisfies both constituencies without alienating either. Finally, there is a business element that cannot be ignored. The event launches a new chapter for how WWE sells premium programming and how it positions itself against competitors. If Wrestlepalooza performs well on ESPN platforms, it could accelerate shifts in how WWE schedules and promotes major events. If it underperforms, the company will still have a large archive and multiple tactics to course correct. For viewers, the weekend will be a referendum on whether legacy names should be revived in a modern venue and whether nostalgia can coexist with the commercial demands of today's sports media environment. Marvelous verdict. Wrestlepalooza's arc feels like a living bridge between punk-era intensity and mainstream spectacle. Born in ECW's small arenas, where danger felt democratic and every match tested limits, the name gathered cult reverence that lasted long after the promotion folded. WWE's choice to resurrect the brand for a September 2025 premium event at Gainbridge Fieldhouse and to launch it on ESPN's streaming platform turns a memory into a marquee moment. The booking strategy, which places this show against a rival promotion's big night, raises the stakes beyond any single card and makes the weekend feel like a referendum on wrestling's future. For longtime fans, the hope is that echoes of grit and unpredictability remain visible. For newer viewers, the event must read as a polished sports spectacle that rewards attention. Whether the relaunch becomes a faithful homage or a reinvention will shape perceptions about legacy and commercial directions wrestling takes next. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.